Today, December 25th, 2025, we're bringing you an urgent, detailed breakdown of a developing story that could reshape the future of two widely watched currencies, the Iraqi Dinar (IQD) and the Vietnamese Dong (VND). If you hold IQD or VND, if you follow currency reform stories, or if you just want clear guidance on what these central bank moves mean for ordinary people, this video is for you. Over the next 22 minutes, I'll walk you through what's reportedly changing at the central bank level, why those changes matter to holders and international banks, the step-by-step processes you should prepare for, and the real-world risks and opportunities ahead. I'll explain in simple English how verification, documentation, timing, and security will now take center stage, and I'll give you practical, non-speculative advice you can act on today. I'll also debunk common myths, show what officials are publicly saying versus what markets are planning behind the scenes, and close with a realistic roadmap you can follow. So stay with me, because missing these details could cost you time, money, or both. Right up front, this is not hype. Central banks set the rules that make currencies trustworthy for global banks, investors, and everyday users. When a central bank announces coordinated policy shifts aimed at improving transparency, stabilizing exchange rates, and building formal verification systems, it's not a small tweak, it's a structural change. That kind of change affects how the currency trades, how foreign banks accept or reject notes, and how easily holders can convert physical currency into mainstream bank accounts or foreign currency. For holders, the immediate takeaways are practical. Get your notes organized, keep all receipts and proof of purchase, and make sure notes are in good condition. For anyone relying on online speculation or promise-laden social posts, now is not the time to act on a rumor. Instead, focus on the verifiable steps that will actually matter once official exchange windows open. We'll examine what banks are likely to require during verification, and what high-denomination bills get extra scrutiny. This matters because structured verification prevents fraud and protects both the holder and the banking system as a whole. Let's get specific about what central banks are reportedly doing and why those moves matter. In recent weeks, the Central Bank of Iraq has circulated guidelines and started conversations with major domestic and international financial institutions about formal frameworks for exchanging and verifying banknotes. These steps include clearer criteria for replacing or trading banknotes, verification procedures tied to serial number and note condition, and coordination with international banking partners to ensure cross-border recognition. When a central bank does this, it signals to commercial banks and clearinghouses that they should build systems to accept and process these notes under official protocols rather than ignoring or blocking them. For holders, that means exchanges can eventually be processed through formal channels instead of informal or speculative routes. If you're holding large amounts, especially 25,000 or 50,000 Iraqi dinars note, or the highest VND denominations, these are the notes that banks will scrutinize most tightly. For anyone who plans to submit holdings for verification, a careful, document approach will reduce delays and increase the chance of a smooth transaction. Beyond verification, there are broader legal and operational moves take place in Iraq that directly affect how banks interact with the dinar. Authorities have been implementing banking reforms, discussing digital currency concepts sometimes described in media as a digital dinar pilot, and revisiting long-discussed changes such as redenomination plans, the technical process of removing zeros from a currency. These are long-term projects that require infrastructure, legal changes, and international partner buy-in. They do not happen overnight. While the talk of redenomination excites many people, in practice such projects move through stages: public communication, lawmaker approvals, technical implementation, and coordination with commercial banks. During this sequence, central banks often tighten note verification to prevent fraud, restrict certain banking activities for non-compliant institutions, and phase new systems in gradually. That's why practical preparedness matters now. Central banks may not change the exchange rate tomorrow, but they are creating the systems that would make a legitimate, orderly exchange passable down the road. It's important to highlight a separate but related development that influences how easily banks process high-volume foreign currency flows. Enforcement actions tied to anti-money laundering and sanctions compliance. International regulators and partner countries sometimes restrict dollar operation for local banks if those banks are flagged for weak compliance. Earlier in the year, well-documented restrictions were applied to a small number of Iraqi banks around US dollar transactions as authorities intensified efforts to prevent illicit flows. Those kinds of restrictions do not ban a bank from operating locally, but they do limit their ability to move funds internationally and participate in global foreign exchange systems. Why does that matter to a dinar holder? Because when some banks are limited from dealing in major currencies, it changes which institutions can support large exchange operations and which ones must rely on intermediaries. And that, in turn, can slow processing times, change fees, and complicate verification chains. If you're planning a high-value exchange, you'll want to work with banks that are fully compliant with international clearing systems or with authorized platforms designated by authorities. Turning to Vietnam, the State Bank of Vietnam has also been actively updating foreign exchange banking regulations in 2025 to modernize the system, encourage foreign investment, and strengthen monitoring. The SBV has issued circulars that clarify foreign indirect investment rules and anti-money laundering reporting threshold, and it has outlined policy directions emphasizing digitalization and flexible exchange rate management. For VND holders, these updates matter because they shape how banks and payment platforms will accept, verify, and convert large VND holdings, and they create clear rules for when and how international banks will engage with Vietnamese currency flows. Vietnam's regulatory frame is moving toward more transparency and better investor protections, which is essential to building global confidence. If you hold large VND sums, you'll likely see banks require documentation similar to Iraq's proof of ownership, serial checks, full banknotes used in informal trades, and bank-level KYC, know your customer, procedures before funds can clear across borders. These changes aren't only for investors, they're designed to make the entire financial system safer and more reliable for everyone who uses it. Now let's be practical about the single most crucial preparation step, documentation. Across both countries, central bank discussions consistently point to documentation as the backbone of any formal exchange. That means you must gather original purchase receipts, transfer confirmations if you bought notes abroad, ID matching the proof of ownership, and any records that tie your notes to legitimate purchase sources. For physical banknotes, take clear, high-resolution photos of serial numbers on each note and keep a written inventory showing denominations, serial ranges, and the date and method of acquisition. If any notes are damaged, consult the bank's published condition guidelines because unusable or heavily damaged notes may be rejected or require separate processing. The more organized and precise your documentation, the fewer hurdles you will face during verification. Documentation protects you against accusations of illegitimate ownership and speeds up the verification process. When banks check serial numbers against any central or bank-held registries. Put another way, paperwork isn't optional, it's essential. Verification is the technical heart of these policies, and it will look different depending on the institution handling the exchange. Expect banks to cross-check serial numbers, examine physical characteristics of notes, and verify ownership against your submitted documents. Large value denominations will get additional checks examiners will inspect for tampering, non-standard series, and any signs of counterfeiting. In some systems, banks may require biometric verification, signed affidavit, or even third-party witness statements for very large transfers. For international exchanges, Notes may be validated at multiple points. First by the receiving bank in the home country, then by the central bank or an official verification center, and finally by the contrapart in the destination country. Each of these steps adds time, but they also provide legal cover for the banks involved so the transfer can be completed without later disputes. Holders should assume any high-value submission will take longer and will require multiple layers of verification. Security cannot be overstated. Handling large sums of physical currency demands extreme care at every stage: secure storage, insured transport if you move notes, and following bank protocols for submission appointments. Use only authorized carriers or bank-arranged secure delivery options. Avoid private courier services not vetted by the receiving institution. Keep digital copies of all documentation in multiple secure locations and maintain a transaction log of communication with banks and officials. When dealing with high-value notes, consider arranging a bank appointment where you and a bank representative can verify the notes in a controlled environment. Never hand over large sums to an unknown intermediary or informal buyer. These protections aren't bureaucratic red tape. They reduce the risk of theft, fraud, or disputes about ownership during the verification process. Remember, a single missing receipt or inconsistent serial record can cause delays and possibly require legal steps to resolve, so treat security and documentation with equal seriousness. Timing is the next pillar. Even with central bank policies now being implemented, exchanges will not be instantaneous. Banks will need to deploy verification infrastructure, train staff, and coordinate with central authorities and international partners. Expect a phased rollout, initial pilots, limited capacity windows for high-value transactions, and then gradual expansion as systems prove reliable. That means you should plan for weeks or months, not days. When preparing for a large exchange, scheduling appointments early, submitting complete documentation on first contact, and using banks that are listed or recommended by official central bank communications will speed things up. Also keep in mind that global political or regulatory events can temporarily slow cross-border operations, so build flexibility into your timeline. In short, plan early, prepare thoroughly, and don't assume immediate conversion will be available the moment a policy is announced. Diversification of channels is a strategic move many experienced holders use, and we recommend you consider it carefully. Don't rely solely on one bank or platform. Some institutions will implement systems faster than others, or will handle specific denominations better. Explore multiple authorized banks, licensed exchange desks, and official platforms listed by central bank announcement. That doesn't mean using sketchy or unverified entities. It means having a short list of compliant, reputable options, so if one is overloaded or temporarily restricted, you have alternatives. Keep detailed records for each bank interaction, and don't duplicate submissions without clear guidance. Simultaneous submissions to unrelated entities can create confusion and slow verification. Diversification reduces the single point of failure risk and increases your chances of completing exchanges in a timely fashion. Community engagement is useful but must be handled with a critical eye. Online forums, social groups, and private channels often share real-time tips about bank procedures, successful verifications, and practical hurdles. These can be valuable for learning how a particular branch handles submissions or which institutions are moving fastest. However, community information often mixes clear facts, partial truths, and outright rumors. Use community tips as leads to verify directly with banks rather than as sole evidence for action. If a group claims a bank is processing exchanges today, call the bank yourself to confirm appointment procedures, documentation requirements, and fees. Treat community updates as intelligence. Useful but always subject to official confirmation. This reduces the risk of false hope or rushed decisions based on incomplete or inaccurate information. Mindset is a practical tool in this entire process. The months or years of waiting have created emotional pressure for many holders, and that pressure fuels impulsive decisions that often lead to losses. The best mindset is methodical and patient. Prepare your documents, organize your notes, secure them properly, and approach only authorized channels. Avoid panic selling to unknown buyers or rushing into unverified platforms, promising instant exchanges at suspiciously favorable rates. Think like a regulator and a bank. What proof would you need to accept a large, legitimate holding? Then provide that proof in advance. A calm, prepared approach reduces errors and maximizes your chance of a fair outcome when formal exchange windows open. Emotional readiness is as critical as paperwork readiness. Now, let's walk through the step-by-step process you should expect when the official channels open for exchanging large holding. First, gather everything: original receipts, ID, bank account detail for receiving funds, and clear serial numbered photos of each note. Second, contact an authorized bank or the official central bank exchange desk. Do not use intermediaries unless they are explicitly authorized. Third, schedule the verification appointment and ask in advance whether the bank requires physical delivery of notes or accepts initial document pre-screening. Fourth, attend the verification appointment with all documents and ask for written confirmation of receipt, including a case or transaction number. Fifth, allow the bank time for serial checks and cross-border verification, and keep the transaction number handy for follow-up. Sixth, once verification clears, confirm the exchange rate and fees in writing before funds are released. Seventh, when funds arrive in your account, keep final receipts and confirmations in multiple secure locations. Following these steps will reduce friction and give you a legal trail in case of any disputes. Let's talk about exchange rates and fees. Official exchanges will be processed at rates set by authorized entities at market-reflective rates determined by the bank or central bank framework. Beware of offers promising unrealistic multiples or private deals that sound too good to be true. These are almost always scams. Fees will vary depending on the institution, the size of the transaction, and any intermediary banks involved in cross-border transfers. Ask for a full fee schedule before committing. Ask what percentage or flat fees apply, whether there correspond bank charges, and whether the rate is fixed at the time of verification or at the time of settlement. For large sums, even small percentage differences can have big dollar effects. Negotiate where possible, but prioritize reputable, compliant channels over marginally better rates that carry higher risk. Legal compliance and tax implications deserve a moment of attention. Exchanging large sums may trigger reporting requirements in your home country and in the receiving country. Banks will flag large transfers for anti-money laundering checks, and authorities may request extra documentation. Be proactive. Consult a qualified tax or legal advisor who understands cross-border currency exchanges so you know what to declare and how to document the transaction. Keeping clean, organized records from day one simplifies the conversations with tax authorities and avoids penalties. Legal compliance isn't optional. It's a requirement that protects you and the banks processing your exchange. What about damaged or unusual notes? Central banks typically publish guidelines about the condition of acceptable notes. Severely damaged notes, notes with missing parts, or notes with altered serial numbers may be rejected or will require a special review. Some banks accept damaged notes for partial credit or require additional documentation to establish provenance. If your notes are in questionable condition, disclose that when you schedule verification and ask for guidance on whether the bank will accept them and under what terms. Don't try to hide damaged notes during verification. Transparency speeds up the process and avoids later rejection or dispute. Fraud and scams are real and active in this space, especially during big policy shifts. Scammers exploit confusion, promising instant conversions, guaranteed high rates, or insider access to exchange windows. Never send notes or money to an unknown party without confirmed authorization from an official bank. If someone asks for payment or sends a contract that looks unusual, pause and verify with the bank's official branch phone number or website. Also, be wary of payment arrangements that involve third-party wallet or private escrow solutions, unless they are endorsed by an official bank. When in doubt, confirm directly with regulated financial authorities or legal counsel. Your safest course is always to deal only with recognized regulated institution. If you are considering selling to private buyers, instead of using formal exchange channels, understand the risks. Private sales eliminate the protections of bank verification, are harder to trace, and often result in lower realized value compared to formal, verified exchanges. Private deals also increase exposure to fraud, disputes over node authenticity, and potential legal scrutiny for large unreported transfers. If you must explore private options, use the utmost caution. Insist on written agreements. Verify buyer credential, and, if possible, complete the transfer in a bank setting where verification can be documented. Even then, formal exchange through authorized channels is the safer, cleaner route for most holders. Communication is your friend. Keep bank contacts, appointment confirmations, and transaction numbers handy. If verification takes longer than expected, ask the bank for written status updates and expected timelines. Maintain polite but persistent follow-up. Banks handle many cases, and written reminders help keep your file active. Also, use registered mail or secure digital delivery for any mailed documents, and keep copies in multiple secure locations. Clear communication reduces misunderstandings and makes it easier to escalate a case if needed. Let's address common myths head-on. Myth 1. A single announcement equals immediate rate change. Not true. Policy announcements create frameworks and systems. Actual change to exchange rate or mass conversions require further steps and time. Myth 2. All banks will accept notes immediately. Not true. Some banks will be ready sooner than ours. Myth 3. Community posts are official guidance. Not true. Always confirm with the bank or central bank. Busting these myths helps you stay focused on actions that actually matter: documentation, authorized channels, and patient follow-through. For those with smaller holdings, the path is simpler but still disciplined. Smaller sums typically move faster through verification and may be handled by retail branches with less layered scrutiny. Still, keep documentation and avoid informal buyers promising premium rates. Smaller holdings still require proof of purchase and ID, but the turnaround can be quicker. If you plan to combine small holdings for a larger exchange, keep precise record of each purchase so the combined package clears verification cleanly. What to expect in the next 30 to 90 days. More official clarifications, pilot exchange windows, and likely lists of authorized banks or centers where verification will be accepted. Pay attention to official central bank websites and verified bank announcements for published criteria and appointment procedures. If you see an official list of authorized processing centers, that list becomes your most important resource. Use only those centers for submission. Keep your paperwork ready now, so that when an official announcement hits, you can move quickly and avoid long wait lists. Finally, a practical checklist to follow right now. 1. Inventory every note and photograph serials. 2. Gather original purchase receipts and any prior correspondence. 3. Securely store notes and digital copies of documents. 4. Identify at least 2 authorized banks or official exchange centers. 5. Schedule appointments as they become available. Consult a tax or a legal advisor if your holding is large. 7. Avoid informal deals and unverified intermediaries. 8. Keep calm and follow up in writing. This checklist gives you a clear action plan to convert uncertainty into orderly, verifiable preparation. In closing, the activation of structured central bank policies in Iraq and Vietnam is a major development that shifts these currencies out of the purely speculative realm and into a regulated, verifiable framework. That does not mean instant transformation. It means the road to legitimate exchange is being built, and those who prepare carefully by organizing notes, securing documentation, and working with authorized institutions will be best positioned to benefit. The months ahead will be a test of patience and process, but they will also offer that first real pathway for legitimate holders to convert holdings through formal channels. Stay skeptical of sensational promises, be methodical about documentation, and prioritize security and compliance above all else. Thanks for watching. If this video helped, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our real-time updates on these developments. I'll be monitoring official bank channels and reporting any verified changes as they happen. If you have specific questions about documentation, appointment procedures, or what to expect at verification, drop them in the comments and I'll address them in upcoming videos. Stay calm, stay organized, and stay informed. This is a pivotal moment for IQD and VND holders, and preparation now makes all the difference.